The team approach is something we try to bring in at the business side, which is it's a team approach, low ego. We've talked about that before. Check your ego at the door. We don't succeed or fail as a business unit with individual performances. We're all part of a larger ecosystem.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Create a Rare Experience. I'm your host, Joe Hamilton. We have a special guest, Rick Schlesinger from the Brewers, president of business operations from the Brewers. Hey, happy to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Great to be here. This place is amazing and looking forward to this.
Yes, so we've got, I think, two cool brands. Vortex is a cool brand. The Brewers are a cool brand. I want to get into all that, okay? But first, I would be remiss. We're going to do a lot of the baseball side on the business side. We'll get into a little bit on the field, but I would be remiss not to point out that the Brewers are absolutely crushing it on the field this year. I believe they're in first. Is that correct?
We're in first place by 6 games.
Okay.
And second best record in baseball.
Second best. So if this could be the year is kind of what I'm hearing.
We keep thinking that, and it has never been the year. We've never won the World Series, right. But every year there's an opportunity, and I'm excited about the team, and there's a long way to go.
Right.
But the team has been gelling. It's playing great. We've been healthy pretty much, and we'll see if we pick anybody up at the trade deadline coming up. But the reality is, the team is playing great, and really proud of the way they're playing. And tough division.
Yep.
Cubs are good. The Cardinals are good. The Pirates are better. Yep. We have about 55 games left to go in the regular season.
Yeah. So if you are obviously a fan of the Brewers, if you're a fan of Wisconsin baseball, but if you're a fan of the David and Goliath, because we'll kind of get into it, the Brewers are not the markets that some of these other teams have. You should be tuning in to the Brewers this year because I don't know. I think I don't want to jinx anything. I think this could be the year.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, we're a small market, but we play in deep waters. Yeah. And we don't think about small market on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. There's certain realities, but Matt Arnold, our GM, Pat Murphy, our field manager, deserve the credit because they've really put an incredible team on the field.
That's awesome. All right, so what I'd like to do to kind of kick things off, what I want to level set for us and level set for the audience is I really want to highlight for leaders in business, how to build a brand that people believe in and want to belong to. So, because I feel like you've done that with the Brewers. I feel like we've done that with Vortex, and I feel like that's a way to serve the audience on the business side. But before we get into all that, I want to get into your backstory.
Okay.
I want to get into your backstory. So you've been with the Brewers, I want to say 24, 25.
This is my 24th season.
24th season, okay. But you were in business before that. And I'd love to get a little bit of your backstory with the Brewers and just kind of walk us through your career, how you got in to be with the Brewers and the role that you're in now.
Great. So I grew up in Milwaukee. I remember the Brewers moving from Seattle to Milwaukee in 1970. Wow. And they were in the American League West for a few years. And I kept asking my dad, I was 11 years old, why are the Brewers in the American League West when they're in the east side of the country? And he said, well, they came from Seattle and that'll probably be fixed. And he was right. And so I grew up in, Milwaukee. I went to University of Wisconsin for undergrad in Madison, loved it, had a great experience. Went to law school. And after law school, went to Los Angeles and worked for a law firm doing litigation. So I was in court a lot and, arguing with people, which was fun.
Yep.
But I didn't love it. I didn't love working in a private law firm, a lot of hours. You wouldn't do many trials. You'd do a lot of paper pushing and a lot of drafting of motions. And it was long hours. I worked every weekend. And then when a friend of mine asked me to come work for the Walt Disney Company, in motion picture production and development. And so I switched, became an in-house lawyer, worked on a lot of great movies. I worked on Sixth Sense, which is that famous movie that everybody saw, and worked on some duds. Okay. But had a great time. I was there for 5 years. And then the Disney company bought the Angels baseball team and the Mighty Ducks hockey team. Okay. They asked me to be general counsel of those teams. So I moved over there in 1998, was there for 5 years. We won the World Series in my last year at the Angels, which was incredible. We won the World Series on my birthday, October 27th. So a pretty good birthday present.
Very cool.
And literally the day after we won the World Series, one of the Brewers executives called me and said, hey, would you come work for us and oversee the business operations of the Brewers. Yeah. And I'm literally at the parade at Disneyland because we, obviously Disney owned the Angels and we had a World Series parade. And I'm like, this is interesting. I'm in LA. It's 75 degrees. We just won the World Series. The Brewers had just lost 106 games. So I thought about it and decided it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So that was in 2003, and I've been there ever since.
So, the Brewers then, they goes all the way back to when you were a kid.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of like a dream job there, because I know you were in maybe not Dreamland, Disneyland, and perfect temps, but the Brewers in Milwaukee was just home.
Yeah, I was always a Brewers fan. Even when I left to go to Los Angeles, I was always a Brewers fan. Always followed them, and the bonds you have when you're a kid and you go to games as when you're 10 years old, 11 years old with your dad. You remember those forever. I remember my first Brewers game. I remember when Hank Aaron's first game as a Brewer. Okay. It was literally snowing at the ballpark because it was freezing, but I remember that. And I had all these great memories with my dad, who loved baseball and was a fantastic baseball player. Yeah. And so, the connection between the Brewers and our family is really strong. And I never lost that bond. So when the Brewers offered me the chance to come work for them, I was already, I was a terrible negotiator. I said, I didn't even think about what to ask in terms of salary or anything. I just said, this is a job. Yes. I said yes. And, I figured the dream would follow, and it's been an amazing privilege to work for the team you grew up rooting for.
So, if you don't mind me asking, was your dad around when you accepted
absolutely.
Or not? What was his reaction?
Yeah, he was thrilled because, he knew that I wanted to work for the Brewers ultimately. He was just excited I was in baseball. Yeah. And so, it was fantastic. He knew what it meant to me. My dad grew up in Chicago. He was a Cubs fan. He was offered a contract to play baseball for the Cubs.
Oh, no way.
And he enlisted in World War II and fought the Japanese instead. Oh. And so as soon as I officially came, back into Milwaukee, he's a diehard Brewers fan. And it was just great to share the experiences of working as an executive of the Brewers. And he gave me, my dad was my mentor. He was a businessman, very successful, and I would ask him questions about running a business because baseball is a retail business, and he was a car dealer, so he knew about retail. And he gave great lessons, great advice, and attended a lot of games with me. And brought him to a lot of playoff games and just had great memories. Awesome. So it was special for my dad, and it just cemented our bond.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a cool backstory. He went to World War II instead of playing for the Cubs.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool. So you've been in this current role as president of business operations. Is that right? Like 7?
Well, my title has changed, but I've overseen business operations for 24 years with a couple of title changes.
Yeah.
But the job's been there since day
So the
one.
job has kind of been the same from a title or the job description or whatever you want to say, but like, how has baseball changed in 24 years? Well, I guess more with the Anaheim Angels is like,
It's like every business. I mean, if I look back at 2003, we probably had 75 employees in the business operation side. Now we're at 240. There's no such thing as social media when I started. There was no such thing as business analytics. Right. We were focused almost exclusively on selling tickets. Okay. And that was our big source of revenue, and that was our focus. So our marketing methods were very, looking back, were very rudimentary. We had no data about our fan base. We had traditional marketing. We'd have print ads in the newspaper, radio, television, static billboards. Mm-hmm. We didn't really know what we were doing, but, we knew we had a great fan base. And the thing about the Brewers is the fans have always been there. But over the time that I've been there, the amount of data and amount of analytics and amount of available information about our fan base is so critical. And that's transformational for how we do our business, because now we basically make decisions, not on gut, not on what worked, but what on the data is telling us. And we're fortunate in our business to have so many points of contact with our fans in terms of when they buy tickets, how they watch our games on television, how they listen on radio, how they interact on social media. So we have so much fan information and data, and we use that to really base most of our decisions, because ultimately we're trying to get the fans to the ballpark, engage with the Brewers.
Okay, so I want to kind of dive deeper on the analytics piece, because obviously when you started, there wasn't any. They weren't using. I know there was batting average and slugging percentage, but you're talking more in the retail, on the business side. And so you obviously have been through. There wasn't some. Was it all at once? Was it slowly over time? And then also, like, how did you integrate it in a way, like maybe what were some of the rough patches of the integration? Maybe there wasn't any. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, interesting. One thing that we saw, and this was true for other baseball teams, is, say analytics and data gathering, data collection really became a focal point of baseball operations. So our baseball operations people started, incorporating data and analytics and hiring people who are specialized in those fields. And, so we learned there are so many statistical measurements for players beyond batting average, home runs, and RBI. And now a lot of those stats aren't even that relevant anymore. So as baseball operations became more sophisticated in their approach to drafting players, developing players, trading players.
Moneyball stuff.
Moneyball, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
I thought, this could apply to the business side. And I always felt like there's a lot to learn on how baseball was integrating numbers, data into its business to make a better team on the field. So we were sort of adopting what had already been in front of us on the baseball side. Okay. And we started with one hire, and then it started to grow, and now we've got 10 business analytics full-time people. Our baseball side has about 45. Yeah. And we just hired our first AI developer, so we're already, trying to understand this new world called artificial intelligence and what it can mean for our business. Yeah. And I feel like I'm always in a race to adapt and develop and try to be nimble with every tool that we can have to make our business better. Right. So, 15 years ago, it was analytics. Now it's AI. It'll be something else in 5 years. And it's transformed both our business and how we look at things.
So I'd be curious, because you said you're always trying to push the envelope. And many times I've heard this thing called the marathon effect, where you've ran the marathon as the leader of the company, and you're like on the last mile, and the other people are like, I don't even know, we're in a race. You know what I mean? And so either does that happen? How do you guard against that? But just like not only the integration of the actual tool, AI analytics, but integration culturally with the team. I mean, we talked about Moneyball, which is a book and it's a movie. And if you haven't read it or seen it, you should. It's pretty good. But there's multiple aspects in that movie and in the book where you've got this old school, kind of like very much, I don't want to say they're not necessarily flying by the seat of their pants. I think there's also some value there, but it's very much gut.
Yes.
And then you got this new school, which is just very much analytics, and you see some of the tension that comes up. How do you deal with that? How did you deal with it? Did you even have to deal with it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely. We saw it in the baseball side with our scouts who would look at players and observe them and get to know them, fighting sort of the analytics and looking at swing pass and velocity and all the measurements you could do from data and video. And the business side, I think, we were fortunate that, we had a team of people, some that I inherited when I started, but some that we brought in who were embracing change, who were comfortable with change. Okay. And it wasn't so much revolution, it was more evolution. I always felt that I was a little skeptical of trying to do too much too quickly, because I wanted to make sure we were making the right decisions on how to bring in new people, how to bring in new systems, how to deal with data, how to deal with all the numbers. Now, I didn't want to overwhelm our organization with just pure numbers and be sort of automatons, because we're still in the retail business. We still have to understand what makes our customer think. We wanted to keep the touch points. So we always wanted to have focus groups. We want to talk to our customers. We just didn't want to hide behind a wall of data and think we knew it all. So I tried to sort of blend in sort of the human factor with the modern analytical factor. And it took me a while, because I always thought I could still make some gut decisions. And I always thought my gut was pretty good because I have a lot of experience. And I've really tried to discipline myself that your gut has value, but it shouldn't be making major decisions. Yeah. And sometimes your gut is going to, absorb the data that aligns with your gut. Sometimes your gut is going to reject data that contradicts your gut. And I always was trying to be very careful about letting the data go where it goes, and letting the analysis and letting the direct reports tell me where it should go, as opposed to me thinking I knew where we should go. Right. And I think one of the things about being a good leader is being a good listener, and creating a culture where people can tell you you're just wrong.
Well, so, okay, you went right where I was going to go because I got that. I'm getting that impression from you that your team has the ability to tell you, just to speak up, to be direct, to call out, no, that's the wrong move. You should be going this way. And here's why. Here's the data. And it seems like, so have you always been open to criticism? Was that maybe something that you grew up with? Did you have to learn that over time?
I always thought that I was receptive to criticism. Now, every leader thinks they're receptive to criticism, and I guess the test is letting your people tell you're wrong, and it's okay to make mistakes, and creating a culture. I think, and I've said this to others before, but there's two kind of cultures in business. There's a culture of fear and a culture of love, and I've worked in an organization where it's a culture of fear, and in that environment, you don't disrespect, you don't challenge your boss. If you think something's wrong, you have to do it indirectly or in a passive aggressive manner. And that's not healthy for a business. In a culture of love, I think, you're creating an environment where you're giving people empowerment. And it doesn't matter how many years you've had at your job or what your title is. Yeah. If you've got an idea and it's backed with data or it's backed with evidence, not legal evidence, but some facts, you have a seat at the table and you're allowed to be strident about it and be passionate about it. Yep. And so I've tried to, as best I can, to be receptive. And I can think back many times where I've had a gut instinct about something and I've listened to people and we've not done what my gut tells me. We've done what the analysis tells you. And we're not always batting 1,000. We've made plenty of mistakes in our business, and I've tried to create a culture where it's okay to make mistakes because that's the only way you learn. And if you don't make mistakes, it's equivalent to a bank that never has a default rate in its loans. Well, the first thing that tells me is you're being too risk adverse. Right. Okay, and a risk adverse industry is not going to succeed. Right. You're going to become a Kodak. So, you got to make mistakes. You learn from it, and you got to be welcoming to it and accepting it. And I think we've created that culture. And it didn't take overnight. It took a while. Yeah. And you have the right people, but sometimes you don't have the right people. Those guys get jettisoned out. But if you're the right people and you make the right culture, I think you can come to right decisions.
That's great. So talking about the right people, is that something that you've been very, focused on defining what that is and letting the organization know? And if so, how do you do that? So people know, not just you, but the whole people know is like, oh yeah, this is the right person, and oh, this is the wrong person. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing, and I'll just throw this out there. I don't want to, say that this is what you guys do, but one thing that I've noticed, and be curious on this piece as well, is sometimes the wrong people doesn't mean that they're not talented. Right. Right. So I'd be curious on the process that you guys use.
Yeah. So, you got to, I believe this, you have to have the right people on the bus. Yep. And that's the most important thing, because the right people with ethics, with sound judgment, collaboration mentality are going to succeed. And so when we hire people, we actually do make them go through something called a calipers test, which is a really strong personality test that I fully embrace and believe in. And I took it just to see what I was asking people who were looking to come to the Brewers take it. It was interesting. It's eye-opening because it really defines who you are. And that helps us figure out who's the right fit for a position. It also helps us to figure out how to communicate to the person, because one of the things that the test does is it defines how this person responds positively and negatively to different ways of communicating. And everybody's different. So I have a certain style of communication. I like to be very blunt, right to the point, and self-deprecating, and a little bit of teasing with people to make them feel at ease. But that doesn't always work for everybody. Some people have a different approach, and you've got to learn that. So when we are hiring people, I do the calipers test, and that has disqualified people who I, on paper, thought would be excellent fits. So it's very interesting. So here's an example where my gut said, oh, this person would be great for the organization in this role. The calipers comes back very negatively, and then we analyze it, and it turns out there's warning flags, red flags about this person, and we've been disciplined to not hire somebody when those red flags show up. And I think our hiring has been pretty effective because of it. But you bring in the right people because you do the analysis at the first part, and then you give them the resources. It's the human resources, the financial resources, the independent resources. I don't want to micromanage. I usually like to hire people who are experts in the field. I'm more of a generalist. Everybody who reports to me is better at their discipline than I am and knows more than I do. Yeah. That's the way you got to run a business. Yeah. And I know, and I tell them that. I go, you're the expert. You tell me and make the case. And, I love empowering people and having them make decisions.
So I think you hit on a bunch of stuff, but one of the things that you hit on, which it's a big deal for me, and I see this happen a lot with really small businesses, is the leader of the business. And sometimes when the business is so small, it might even just be that one person. So, okay, there might be a season where you are the best at everything because maybe you're just the only person.
Right.
But if you want to go from just a small mom and pop to something medium size or a large style business, you have to hire people who are better at you at that thing. And so there's multiple components to that. I mean, one, you've got to be able to wade through different candidates to find that, but also you've got to drop your ego.
Absolutely.
But this idea that a business owner has to be the best person at every single position and know everything about the business at every single, that business will never grow. It will cap out, in my opinion. And I think you hit on that, is it is not a bad thing. This person should. We were just walking with, Ashley, for instance. She leads marketing. At one point, I lead marketing. She leads marketing better than I ever could. We met in Seamus's office. He leads sales. I thought I was pretty good at sales. He's better at it than I've ever been. And I'm proud of that. And it seems like you are too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a lawyer for 20 years. I was a general counsel of a baseball team. I hired a general counsel, Marty Ronsky, who's so much better at the job than I was, and to the point where she's going to replace me as president when I retire in a few years. And so I've been spending the last several years sort of mentoring her, and it's obvious that she's going to take the organization to much greater heights. And I kid her, I said, Marty, don't fix all my errors in the first 30 days when you take over, because it'll make me look bad. At least pretend that it takes 6 months to fix everything I did wrong. But there's a perfect example. I thought I was a really good general counsel. She brought in, and I was just impressed and amazed at how much better at the job she was and how much better a president she's going to be than I am. And so I think you look at everybody in the job that you hire and say, hey, not only are they smart and they're talented, but they embrace the culture, low ego, because this is a team mentality. We're not winning by individual performance. We're winning by everybody pulling together. And do they embrace the culture, and do they embrace the mission of the team? And if they do, empower them. And so we've got great leaders. I love redundancy. We have some great executives who are also ready to retire in a few years, and they have mentored their replacements. Yeah. And it's fantastic, because I don't want anything to be dropped. When I leave the Brewers, I think I'm going to leave it in a better position than when I found it. But my main goal is to make sure that the people who are replacing me are already ready to elevate the organization even better.
Versus being threatened by it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Which can happen sometimes with leaders,
Sure.
right? They don't want to have anybody that they feel threatened by, which in reality they shouldn't.
Absolutely. I feel a very great connection to the team. I owe the Brewers everything, because they gave me my career and my passion and my love, and to mix my love of baseball with business and being in my hometown team. So I have this really strong identity, and I want the organization to be great. And the best way you can give the organization greatness is legacy, and also bringing in people who can elevate the organization after you leave.
That's awesome. So you had mentioned a culture of fear or a culture of love, and then you also mentioned about your communication style. You mentioned coming up as a lawyer and general counsel and having this more direct style. And I want to come back to that, but I kind of want to tee it up with this. And then you also talked a lot about data, which I think a lot of times people think of data and then a culture of love, that feels like one feels very sterile maybe, and then one feels very kind of gooey and emotional and all that kind of stuff. So, but anyways, before I kind of get back to that, so I'll give you my experience with the Brewers on the business side. Okay.
Great.
So big sports guy, like you're a big sports guy. And so anytime we've had an opportunity that has come up with a sports team or something sports related, I already know I have an inherent bias to say yes. So number one is I usually get myself out of being like the tip of the spear on that connection. And number two, I actually end up making it harder for us to do anything with them, because I know I have such a strong bias towards sports. So even though fan of the Brewers, love going to the games, when I hear this opportunity the Brewers come up, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit because I'm thinking a couple things. I'm like, we're just doing this because the Brewers are cool, baseball's cool, and it's probably a very, what I would call, transactional relationship. And I know at some level, whenever there's a sponsorship or partnership, there is some transaction at some level that's happening. But so that was a little bit like, I don't know, you guys have your meetings and whatever, come back, and I trust the team. I trust Ashley, I trust Sawyer, who you met. And they come back and they had given you guys some feedback about who we were. Okay. So this is a big tip out there for anybody who wants to pitch Vortex, but also just in general. So they'd given some stuff about what we were passionate about. You know, we were passionate about the military. We were passionate about having a strong connection. And so you guys came back with this deck and this pitch that was not a canned deck. I mean, it was completely built around the stuff that you're like, here's the things that we could do, either that we're doing already that we could partner with. Here's some things that we came up with that we haven't been doing already. And so a couple things is you pitched it really about around our interests. So there was that, which was really cool. Didn't feel transactional. Felt like you were really personalizing that, so to speak. But then the other thing is so we start working the Brewers, and I'm kind of like, okay, this sounds good, but I'm still trying to my bias, keep it out of the picture. And then they say, okay, well, so we got this hometown hero. You got to go, Joe, and you got to present that, right? And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go do that. So I get to meet Joe Robinson. I get to meet Meg. I get to meet your team. I mean, this was not transactional at all. These people, they had that kind of love, like that you mentioned. It was a very connected relationship, just very authentic people, from walking me down there to being down there, introducing me to different people. I mean, anytime I've been part of that, you guys are so connected with the fans, but the community. So whether it's hometown, whether it's veterans, whether it's military law enforcement. I mean, another award I got to present was from an RA nurse that's going above and beyond. I mean, so there was love all over the place. But then going back now, which is awesome. And that's one reason, like, we keep leaning into this relationship with the Brewers, because we're like, oh, we are super aligned, because we try to connect with our customers. But then to marry that up with you telling me that you guys are all like data based and everything, there must be a little bit like more of this connection love piece that somehow blends into that.
No,
can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, that's, first of all, I appreciate the remarks. I think when we're looking at partnerships, it's a lot of listening. Okay. And I think there's sometimes a default to just, I've got some sponsorship assets, I'm going to present them to a potential partner as, here's some great assets. And that's the wrong way to go about business. You have to listen to understand the company. And ultimately, what we want to do for our partners is help them grow their business. There has to be a return on investment for sure. And it can be, return on investment doesn't necessarily mean, well, I have a market increase in my revenue because of my Brewers connection. Return on investment can be many things. It could be the brand, it could be brand identity, it could be culture, it could be employee engagement, all that stuff. So one of the things we do with partners like you guys is listen to you. And Joe Robinson is one of our best because he's a great listener. And we also were excited because Vortex is what we call as a heritage brand. You guys are Wisconsin. Yep. You guys connect with Wisconsin people. People in Wisconsin, they're hunters, they're golfers. They are, they have an affinity with your brand. It's not a transaction when people buy your brand. There's definitely a connection. I've just, in the few hours I've been here, seeing how you guys work the business, it's impressive. And you guys create connections. So that's what we try to do with our fans and try to do with our partners. And so especially we have such a strong affinity on our side for military. I'm a military history nut, so I don't know if that's sort of permeated through some of the things, but we have a lot of people who are veterans. We have a strong relationship with the military. I actually mentor West Point cadets as part of a side job that I do, and have been to West Point a few times and talk to cadets all the time. But your affinity with the military, and we thought we've got great programs that fit right within your brand. Honoring a military veteran in every game in the third inning, that's a big deal. We get more fan engagement and credit, if you will, for honoring these heroes. And it's a great moment in the game. And it's almost like no matter what happens, if I'm losing 6-0 after the second inning, it's a special moment to honor these veterans.
Well, you can feel it with the players. You can feel it with fans. And
the umpires are clapping. Everybody's engaged.
And so actually, this is a perfect segue. So, Ryan, can you put up on the screen the video that we got? This is from the Brewers game. This is one of our employees and his wife.
Please join Vortex in recognizing former Technical Sergeant Chris Flanagan and his wife, Routine Senior Master Sergeant Amanda Flanagan, proud veterans of the United States Air Force and Wisconsin Air National Guard. Chris served for 12 years as an F-15 engine mechanic with deployments to Japan and Afghanistan. Amanda served for over 23 years in the Force Support Squadron and deployed 4 times. After they left the Air Force in 2024, Chris and Amanda became licensed foster parents. Along with their daughter Charlotte, they've opened their home as a shelter to families in need. Please join us in recognizing Chris and Amanda Flanagan as Vortex's Heroes of the Game.
So pretty cool. Shout out to Chris and Amanda Flanagan and their daughter Charlotte. And of course, they served our country, and then afterwards they became foster parents. So you guys picked some great people. But this is a
special couple. Yeah, right. That's impressive.
So this is what Chris wrote. So I'll read this. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. I was truly humbled to be selected and to be greeted with such applause from the thousands of fans. My wife was also taken aback by the experience. The Brewers and Vortex seem to have a great thing going, and it's awesome to be part of it all. We even ran into another Vortex employee as well as several families from our town. The home of Vortex, little old Barneveld. Even had a high school classmate reach out because he had heard my name come across on the radio broadcast, and another Bino repair guy, he's in Bino repair, heard it too. I won't forget this. Thank you to all that were involved, and I hope you keep this going. High fives. Thank you again. Simply unforgettable, Chris. So yeah, culture of love. I mean, and if for those who haven't been to a Brewer game, I mean, it's something else. You guys, not only do you connect with the community and connect with the military and law enforcement, but another thing that I think is just, so most of the games that I had been going to had been on the weekend, busy during the week. But we had a marketing experience, and so we went during, I think it was like a Tuesday afternoon. And by the way, your group found out, so Joe and Meg, they were aware, and so a couple things they did is they had our team up on the Jumbotron.
Yep.
And then they invited our group to do the sausage race,
Excellent.
Which was incredible. So thank you for that. But I was blown away because that's the first time in a long time, maybe since I was a kid, I had been to a game during the middle of the week, during the middle of the day, and I was just assuming like it's probably going to be pretty sparse in here. It was packed.
Yeah.
It was packed. So you guys definitely connect. You get fans to the ballpark, and not just to the ballpark, they are passionate about it. So can you talk a little bit just even more about how you connect with the fans? Because there's a lot of baseball teams in even bigger markets, and they would kill to have that.
Yeah, we are so privileged to have such a strong fan base in Wisconsin. And we're not the biggest market. In fact, by any measurement that baseball uses, we're the smallest market in baseball. And if baseball was starting now and doling out the teams, I don't think Milwaukee would get one because there's bigger markets. But we have always had tremendous fan support through good seasons, tough seasons. I've been to the Brewers for 24 seasons, and there's been some really great years and some really lean years, but the fan support's been there. And I think first and foremost, the connections that we've created with our fans start in the womb. These are generational fans. People obviously come and go. People in Wisconsin, they're born here, may leave, but they come back. Maybe they leave for school or college, come back, have a family, and the connection with the Brewers is re-engaged. So we start them young. We start them in the crib. And, we want to make the experience great. And the experience, I'd love to promise a victory every time we play at home. I can't do that. Although I did have an opportunity to lobby for Mizorowski to pitch at home instead of on the road, and I was successful because he's obviously a fan draw, but that's a whole separate story. But, I think taking care of your fans, cherish the fans is sort of one of our mantras, and it doesn't mean just providing a great baseball team, which is important, but it's cyclical, and you can't always predict when the team's going to be well. But whether it's affordability, whether it's variety, whether it's the fan experience, whether it's the music, whether it's how you're greeted at the parking lots or at the gate, the ease of a transaction when you get your ticket, are the bathrooms clean? Is there stuff for kids to do? Is it affordable? Is it safe? All that stuff goes into the mix. This is not just an investment by people with money; it's an investment of their time, and also there's sort of a tribal connection too, because we have great sports teams in Wisconsin. Okay, I'm a huge Packers fan. I'm a huge Bucks fan. I'm a Badger through and through. I love Marquette. I love all the schools. So there are many teams that people in Wisconsin can align their loyalty to, and you got to earn that loyalty, and you got to keep earning it, and you got to create those connections that go beyond just a transaction, and we try to do that. And that's why even in the lean years, the people come. It's a great ballpark. The fans paid for the ballpark. They have funded the ballpark, and we have tried to lovingly maintain it and make it a great experience. All of that goes in the mix, and the result is the support we get. But it starts first and foremost with the loyalty that people have in Wisconsin to the things that matter in Wisconsin, whether it's Summerfest, the lakes, it's heritage companies like Vortex, or Johnsonville, or enjoying your friends and family at cabins versus supporting your sports teams. People cement these bonds, and they live with these bonds, and they pass it down to their kids.
Well, I think that seems to tie in a lot with what you said about listening well. For instance, when we first connected and Joe listening so well to what was near and dear to our hearts is that, you just rattled off literally everything near and dear to Wisconsinites and that matter. And obviously you are one.
Yeah.
But still, I think really understanding at a deep level what resonates with your fans, what resonates with people in the state, what resonates with business partners. And then it looks like you're adjusting to that as opposed to here's the Brewers experience. You need to adjust yourself accordingly. And that, to me, that's a huge tip. It's what we try to do. It's one thing that has allowed us to lean further into this Brewers relationship, but it's something that you guys are doing. And it makes sense that, like you said, in certain years, you're crushing it. You're in first, and other years they're more lean and they're not. And I think a lot of people would associate sports with, hey, when you're not having a good season, people aren't going to be there. And when you are having a good season, then they are going to be there. But you guys have done a good job of just really, being connected. And I want to share one experience, and I know this is like a one-off, but I have a feeling this type of stuff happens at the Brewers a lot. And I told you about this one, but I want to tell it for the listeners. And that was, so I was at a game with a banking partner. So we're at the game, and a mutual friend of ours, it turns out, we didn't know this initially, but also a Joe. He was there, but he wasn't there with his wife, Rebecca. And so one of the people on your team, I can't remember if it was Joe Robinson, who it was, but said, hey, where's Rebecca? And he said, well, we went golfing yesterday, and she got hit in the head with a golf ball, and she was, kind of having a headache and not feeling well. And there was 3 or 4 people with the Brewers there, and somebody just real stealthily just kind of like broke away from the conversation, left, and I don't know, 10, 15 minutes later came back with something behind their back, pulls it out when there was like just a lull in the conversation, and, hey, Joe, really sorry Rebecca can't make it. By the way, next time tell her to wear this. And I find out I don't know if it's his backup or his third backup or fourth backup, but Christian Yelich's batting helmet.
Yep.
So it was funny. It was unique. It was personalized. This whole podcast is called Create a Rare Experience, which is all about being unique, memorable, and personalized. And that was it right there. So I was already starting to become a fan of the Brewers business side. And when that happened, I was like, oh, these guys just get it. These guys just get it.
I know Joe and Rebecca well. They're friends. And when I heard that story, we're like, oh, I'm not a good golfer. I luckily haven't hit anybody with a ball, but we want to, they're family. People who are partners of the Brewers are part of the Brewers family and part of our ecosystem, and little things like that, because we care about these people. They're in the community. So one of the things we're fortunate, the team is so many of our partners are Wisconsin, are people from Wisconsin. So we get to see them and get to interact with them. It's not, some corporate person in, New York making a decision and then we have a transaction. I'm happy to have a transaction. If somebody wants to send me a check, I'll be happy. But the ones that matter and the ones that have more longevity and more staying power are the ones where you actually experience and work directly with the key leaders at the other place, because that's how you forge bonds. You listen, you learn what people care about, and that's what makes partnerships into friendships.
So you're on the business side, but this is a baseball team, which puts a product out on the field and plays against opponents there. And that's a culture too. Do you guys look at that as one big culture? Are they two separate cultures? You'd mentioned earlier about how the analytics of kind of the baseball side help drive analytics on more of the business side of baseball. But I'm just kind of wondering, like, how do those cultures intermix? Do you guys just look at it as one culture?
Yeah, no, it is one culture. Now, obviously, the players and the baseball operations obviously have specific and specialized tasks, and they're recruiting people with talent, and their talent recruitment and development is obviously different than it is on the business side, but it is one culture. And I think what I would say that the culture starts, it starts when we, on the baseball side, when we draft a player who's maybe 18, 19 years old, we're drafting a player and we're instilling them a notion that it's team first, individual second. And one thing that's weird about baseball is that, baseball pitchers get a win and loss. Every game has a winning pitcher and a losing pitcher. And it's really sort of weird because baseball is the ultimate team sport. And the pitcher doesn't win the game or lose the game by himself. And one of the things we instill when we draft a player is we talk about failure. And it's weird because when you're drafted to play professional baseball, you are an elite college or high school player, and you've only known success. And the hardest thing for these guys is to come in and experience failure because they've never experienced it. And one of the things we talk about at the baseball side when they're young is you fail as a team, you succeed as a team. And your 0 for 4 doesn't mean that you cost the team the game. Everybody is part of a bigger product. And your teammates, not your coaches, your teammates are your best advocates. They're going to prop you up when you have a bad game, and they're going to keep your ego in check when you have a great game. And the team approach is something we try to bring in at the business side, which is it's a team approach, low ego. We've talked about that before. Check your ego at the door. We don't succeed or fail as a business unit with individual performances. We're all part of a larger ecosystem. And most of what we do is the product of many different people, many different departments, many different disciplines. And it's the product of a lot of hard work. Yeah. And I can't really think of individuals that are successful without that team approach. So we take the same approach that the players do, and we try very hard to make sure the players appreciate us, that we appreciate the players. They're also taught very early on, they're part of a community. So when they're in the minor leagues, they're doing community things. They're doing out there in the community, whether it's in Biloxi or Appleton or wherever. So when they come to the Brewers, they know that the community is deserving of not only their best play on the field, but their best self, whether it's doing things for charities, whether it's helping the community, every little thing we do. So the players get that and they're socialized and they buy into it. The players that don't, they don't stay.
Yeah.
The system sort of kicks them out.
Okay. Yeah. I think Jim Collins said it ejects them like a virus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if somebody is a great talented player and they're incredibly selfish and they have such a negative effect on the clubhouse, there's no player in baseball that is so worthy that they can overcome that from our perspective. I mean, you could take the greatest player in baseball, and if he's such a poisonous influence on the clubhouse and the team will suffer. And, it's different. In basketball, you can take the greatest, Michael Jordan, probably the greatest basketball player of all time, he can take an ordinary team and make him a champion. That's basketball. It's a different game. No baseball player has that same impact on a team, and therefore, frankly, we can afford to be a little more discriminating in the type of personalities and culture we're creating because one player who is great, if he's got all this poisonous back stuff, he's not going to survive. The
really
burst.
Isn't great though.
Right.
And then that goes back to, I think what you said is it is one culture because you're testing for it and interviewing for it. And you said low ego, even on the business side. So that it really is one culture. It's not just on the baseball field. It's not just in the business side, which I think, and I won't call out any other names of other teams. And of course I don't know, but that doesn't seem to necessarily be the playbook that all sports teams use. Some teams, it looks like, at least from the outside, that we're just getting the guys with the best stats. We're going to mash them together. We're going to create our proverbial dream team. And sometimes it works out, but a lot of times it doesn't work out.
Yeah, it's hard because you're playing 162 regular season games. You're playing 30 spring training, and then you've got hopefully 15 or 18 postseason games. It's a long season. And the players have to look at each other not as how do I help my stats, but help the team win. And it's weird because ultimately statistics drive salaries in baseball. If you have great statistics, you're going to get paid. So there is, I'm not going to ignore the fact there's this little bit of a tension between a player wanting to have good statistics and a player wanting to do what's best for the team. What I think Matt Arnold, our GM, and Pat Murphy, our field manager, have done is really told the players and gotten the players to a point where they think of team first and stats second. And that's why we maybe are not the most talented team. We're certainly not the highest payroll team by any stretch, but we've been incredibly successful. And I think that's the secret sauce is team first. And we're in this together, and selfishness, really check it at the door with your ego.
Do you think, so for you, and maybe just talk more on the business side, is that something that you feel, or that you clearly deal with it on who gets in the business? You're doing your best to kind of, screen for low ego. How do you handle it if somebody does have an ego? And maybe in your career, have you ever had, and how did you handle it with somebody who had a big ego? They were good. I mean, they like at their very specific job, they were really, really talented and skilled, but either they had ego from the jump or maybe that ego crept up because they started to get better and better. How do you deal with somebody like that? Yeah,
we've had certainly employees at a senior level who have, fallen into the ego swamp, as we call it. And you know what? There's sometimes you can address it and you can manage it and people can adapt, but there are certainly people that's how they're wired, and the organization gets out of them what we can, and then they move on. And we've had people like that, and they've seen the signs, and there's a point of no return where if somebody is just looking at their career path first, or their pay first, or their power first in the organization, they're ultimately going to plateau. And the plateau happens, and they see it, we see it, and then it's often a mutual decision for them to move on. And I bear them no ill will, and they may succeed elsewhere, but those people have a shelf life. Yeah. And I want people for the long term. I want to get people who want to make the Brewers their career and not looking at the Brewers or their position or their title as just a stepping stone. And yeah, sometimes you think you've done a good job in weeding those people out in the hiring process, but sometimes it crops up. You manage it or they plateau and they leave. We've had to have people leave, and I've had people who are tremendously successful in their specific assigned duties, but they bring too much baggage to the organization and it doesn't work. And we have done just fine after they've departed. And I wish them the best of luck in their new organization.
But I would imagine there's probably a sigh of relief when they're gone.
Yeah. Regardless whether it's somebody with an ego or just they're a bad culture fit. I probably err on the side of trying to fix as opposed to jettison. Because I do think people, if you're honest with your employees, that's the first thing. If somebody has a big ego, but nobody ever talks to them or calls them out, it's not their fault, it's the organization's fault. So we're trying to be honest with our employees, give them an opportunity to adjust, react, and listen. And if they don't adjust and react, I can't have a long tolerance. I try, but I don't want to jettison somebody without giving them every opportunity to make a change in their life and how they deal with their coworkers. Yeah.
So I got a couple of kind of just, I don't know if they'll be rapid fire, but so we talked about building a brand that people, believe in, want to belong to, and you've hit on a lot of things. And so you may have answered this already, but like, what would you think would be, if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who's trying to build a brand like that? What's the piece of advice that you think is the most, foundational and important?
That's a great question. I think you have to have passion and you have to have authenticity. I think that the people that are most successful, the passion is both having just the creative energy to really learn everything you can about your product, your service, your business, sort of absorb as much as you can, not just data and information, but there are many examples out there of success. Absorb the lessons and what has worked. At the same time, you're not going to be successful if you're fake. And I think, being genuine means being who you are. And sometimes it's as simply as picking a passion or a career or a service or a business that you love, that you cherish. And I get a lot of students in college who want to get into baseball and careers, both baseball and business. And we always talk about it, and a lot of them come to me and say, well, I'm majoring in statistics because I think that's really good, or I'm majoring in sports management, or I'm majoring in economics or finance. And I said, that's great, but is that your passion? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, and sometimes they'll say, well, I really love history, or I love political science, or I love botany. And I said, well, here's the thing. I have a lot of executives with the Brewers. I have no idea what they majored in. I couldn't tell you. Half of them, I don't even remember where they went to college. Your major doesn't define you. Your passion defines you. So I know you're always being, sort of railroaded into thinking of how my college major is going to help my career. But you know what? Pick something you're passionate about. The success will follow. If you major in something that you're not passionate about, but you're thinking it's a stepping stone to a career, I think ultimately you're going to be disappointed and you're going to be lost. And so when I was in college, I majored in history and political science, and my friends were all majoring in business. And they used to say, what are you going to do with a political science and history degree? And I said, I'm not sure, but I love political science and I love history. And I want to do something which uses those disciplines. And now, even though I don't use history and political science every day, the lessons I learned from those majors still carry with me. And I love college. I have passion for it. And I still have passion for those subjects. So authenticity and passion to me are the keys.
That's something that we share is I don't know the resumes of our people. And I think a lot of people put way too much stock in that. But that's obviously great advice. I'm curious, what's the biggest misconception for when somebody meets you and they say, "Oh, you're in baseball"? Right? It's like you get the off season off, right? Like what's the biggest misconception?
Yeah, the big one is, do you guys do anything in the off season? And the reality is, off season is in some ways, not from a time perspective, but from a work perspective, more busy than during the season, because we are planning. We start the planning for the next year in August so we're starting in a few weeks to start budgeting and planning for 2027, and we still got a lot of games left to go in 26, and the story is yet to be written. But when the off season hits, hopefully it's late October, early November, when we're done playing and we've won the last game played in the baseball season. That's the goal. We're knee deep into planning for 2027. And there's a lot of things to get done. And people think, oh, you've got all this time off. It's amazing how quickly the off season goes, because as soon as the calendar turns to January, we're 6 weeks from spring training. We're a few months from the start of the season. So we have sponsorships to work on. We have tickets to sell. We have capital projects at the ballpark to get done. We've got all our branding and our PR and all of our strategy and all of our hiring. So it's incredibly busy during the off season. In season, we spend a lot more hours because, I'm at every game, and, I'll start at 9 a.m. and sometimes the games go at 10 p.m. And then we got another one the next day. Sometimes we have 9-game homestands, and I'm at the ballpark all the time. And it can be a long time at the ballpark. But the off season is our busy season from a planning, strategy, implementation, and budgeting. So it gets busy.
That's awesome. Ours is, they think that we don't work in October and November because it's hunting season, and they just think that we're off. But
there's no off seasons.
Yeah, there's
business.
no off seasons, right? So favorite baseball player, both, it could be any baseball player and then favorite Brewer. And maybe that's going to be hard.
It's for me, my favorite baseball player, non-Brewer, is Roger Maris. Okay. Most people remember the Yankees in the 50s and 60s, and they think of Yogi Berra, Whitey Ford, and Mickey Mantle. And Roger Maris had a much more shorter career. Obviously set the then American League home run record, 61 home runs in 61. And I've just always admired him. He was a very good player. He wasn't a Hall of Famer. His career was short, and he went through a juggernaut to be in New York and be somewhat of an introverted guy, breaking, Babe Ruth's hallowed, home run record.
Mickey Mantle to break it.
Everybody wanted Mickey Mantle to break it. And so Roger Maris got a lot of abuse, and he was not treated well by the press and not treated well by the fans. And he persevered and just had a work ethic. And
he was kind of dueling banjos. I mean, at one point they were both going for it in the same
61,
year.
Maris had 61 home runs and Mickey Mantle had 54. Yeah. And Mickey got hurt. Yeah. So it's unclear if maybe both would have broken the record. So who knows? But so my owner, Mark Antanasio, knows that I've been a big Roger Maris fan. So as a present, he gave me a grade 9 Roger Maris rookie card, which is not an inexpensive card. Oh, wow. So I have it treasured in my office at home because he knows my favorite. My favorite Brewer, I got a lot of them. People will think this is strange, but, Ricky Weeks is probably my favorite Brewer. Now, Ricky Weeks was he didn't have the best stats, and he didn't have the best career, but this is a guy who worked harder than anybody I've ever seen work at the craft of baseball. And he was a high draft pick. He was the number 2 pick when we drafted him. He was a great college player. And he had a great career. He was hurt a lot. But he played with such intensity, and he practiced and he trained, and he had such respect for the game, consummate team player. He certainly wasn't the most talented player. I would not say he was a great defensive second baseman. Yeah. I would not say he had the great high average. But this is a guy who played with passion, who got the best version of himself, and was a teammate first and foremost. And he was a quiet leader. If you were on the Brewers when he played and you weren't giving 100%, it wasn't Ricky didn't call you out, but he gave you a look. And people never needed a second look from Ricky Weeks. And this is a guy who respected his teammates, respected the game. I'm a friend of his. I'm a huge admirer of him as a person. And again, this is a guy who had blessed with so much talent, but worked at it and never took it for granted. And I just think the world of him as a person.
So, clearly you're a big fan of guys with great work ethics, with Roger Maris. And I don't know, since you're the big history buff, but I remember watching 61, the series
Billy Crystal produced movie.
And I don't know how accurate that was, but that was really, I found that extremely interesting, had so much more respect for Roger Maris after watching that. And so again, I don't know how accurate it was.
Yeah, I've read a lot of books about the Yankees in that era, and I thought the movie was great, by the way. And I what was amazing is how much the actors looked like the young Maris and young Mantle. It's almost uncanny. Yeah. I love that movie. I love baseball movies. That's one of my favorites. And at least from what I've read, it was very true to life.
Okay.
And, the Yankees players, they like their off the field activities, and I get it. And it just showed the pressure that Roger was facing, but it also showed the friendship between Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris.
That was the other piece.
The media wanted to create this divide, like they were enemies. And Roger and Mickey were really good friends, and they're very different people. Right. And they were going through this competitive nature, but also trying to win the World Series, which they did. 61 Yankees are a great team. But it just shows you the real experience that these guys had at a time before social media existed, but they went through the gauntlet of media intensity that most players had never experienced, and they got no help from the Yankees to navigate those waters, and that was a tough, stressful time for them. And I mean, the fact that Roger Maris had 61 home runs, facing all of what he faced, I mean, a testament to this guy's perseverance.
And that's a great gift, by the way. That's a big card guy here, which we'll get into a second.
I have all of Sandy Koufax's cards, including his rookie card, which I will cherish forever.
Yes, that's really good. So, just a couple more business questions, and then we got to have a couple of gifts for you, a couple things here. So, who's the best leader that you've ever had, and why?
Wow. I've actually been blessed to have a lot of mentors in my career. I mean, the best leaders that I've never met, like Winston Churchill, to me is the ultimate. And we could talk for hours about leadership, and I think he defined leadership. But personally, people that I've known, that I've gotten the benefit of their leadership, I've been very fortunate in all of my jobs. I've had a mentor. When Michael Leonard was my mentor when I was at the law firm in Los Angeles. He was a former Olympian and was a great lawyer. And for some reason, he took me under his wing and taught me how to be a lawyer and taught me how to do critical thinking as a lawyer. And to this day, much of what I've done is because of Michael's influence. When I was at Disney, Philip Mull was a senior business lawyer who taught me the ins and outs of the entertainment business and was a great mentor and taught me so many things. When I went to the Angels, Tony Tavares, the president of the Angels, he was a tough man. If you were not prepared in a meeting, he would not be happy.
He'd let you know about it.
He'd let you know about it, but I learned so much about work ethic, preparation, how to think. Tony was probably one of the best guys who was street smart, but also academic smart, a rare quality. Yeah, for sure. So I learned so much from him. And then when I've been to the Brewers, just working with Mark Antanasio, our owner, it's easy to say, the owner's a great leader, but what Mark has done is sort of given me a lot of bandwidth to run the organization on the business side without a lot of micromanaging. It helps he's in LA a lot, but one of the things I learned from him is delegation and holding people accountable, but you've got to give them the ability to make decisions, and you don't second guess. Mark is not a second guesser, and I've made many mistakes, and I've talked to Mark about it, and my philosophy with Mark is, if I made a mistake, own up to it and tell him how I'm going to what I've learned from it, and he's been great. And so I've been very blessed to have great leaders, great mentors in every facet of my business. And I try to, in turn, be a great mentor to other people. And the truth we'll find out. So hopefully Marty, our parent for me, is just an incredibly talented executive. And I'm so privileged that she's in the organization and is going to take the organization from me and just hit it out of the park.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So I have one more business question, then a couple fun stuff that we're going to get to. What is your most contrarian business take?
Interesting. Okay.
Most people think one thing.
You talked a lot about data, so this might be contradictory, but it took me a while to get to this point. In our business, you cannot, in many instances, wait till you have all the information or all the data. And the reason is because we have to make a lot of decisions all the time, and a lot of them have to be made under some sense of urgency. I'm not talking like I've got 20 minutes to make a big decision, but there's a cadence to when things have to get done. And as a leader, when I don't make decisions, I'm holding up everybody else's work. So one of the things I like to do is be decisive and make decisions. So it took me a while to come to grips with this reality is you're going to make a lot of decisions when you only have 80 to 85% of the information or data or whatever you need to feel comfortable. And it took me a while to realize that you can make good decisions even if you're at 85%. Because if you wait for the last 15%, a lot of the first 85% of the information is already obsolete or the market's moved on you. And it took me a while because at first I was, okay, I work on my gut, but then when we had data, I really was passionate about getting the information.
All the
information. And I kept waiting and I realized, you know what, you're holding people up. You're not making the best decisions waiting for the last 15%. The last 15% you don't have, you got to have the confidence to know that the 85% that you do have is pretty darn good. And you rely on your experience. I don't want to say gut, but you do rely on your experience. You rely on your colleagues, your other workers. You rely on precedent and all that kind of stuff. And you come to the right decisions most of the time. And I'm trying to think, has there been times when if I had the other 15%, I would have made a better decision? Probably, but I can't think of too many of those, which is sort of a way of saying you're going to come to a point when you have enough information where you have to make a decision because you don't have the time to wait. You make those decisions, you feel good about it, and you move on. And if you're wrong, you learn from it, but most of the time you're going to be accurate.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think it's the difference between ready, fire, aim. There's ready, aim, fire, which is what you want to be, and there's ready, aim,
right.
aim. You
Absolutely.
Can't fire. And I think that's metaphor. A great contrarian take because, yes, sometimes certain people are on that front end where they just fire way too quick, and some people, they never get there. And you're right, there's a diminishing amount of return on that last 15%, the timing. So that's I'm going to remember that one. That one's a really good one. And then a couple of fun stuff. So you talked about Winston Churchill, and I know that we prepped for this, and one of them was a Zoom call, and I got to see your office a little bit, and I know that you had a little mouse that was kind of interesting. So here's a Winston Churchill.
Oh, this is fantastic.
I felt like that maybe we don't have to get into your other one, but I thought it contrasts a little well with the other one that you showed.
This is fantastic. So yeah, the reason why this is relevant is in my office, some of my work colleagues gave me it's like a gerbil. It's a stuffed gerbil, dead. I didn't kill it. It died humanely. Yep. And its paw was raised in a way that candidly it looked like sort of you're giving a Nazi salute. Now, clearly that was not the intent, but I noticed it right away. I'm a history student. So the first thing I saw is, okay, guys, you're giving me a gerbil who's a Nazi. Yeah. And no, it's just the way the gerbil's arm is raised. So it's become sort of a little joke in our office that I've got the Nazi gerbil.
Yeah, so I wanted to contrast that.
Now I've got a good place for Winston Churchill. This I will treasure.
Yeah. So I wanted a Winston Churchill.
This is fantastic.
Gift,
Thank you so much.
I thought that would contrast well.
This is fantastic.
Yeah. Good. And okay, so you hit on another one, and I won't spend a ton of time on this because we'll get to the fun stuff. But so we talked obviously a lot about baseball, and so I am a big sports guy. But one of the things I struggled with as a kid was learning to read. So and fortunately, I had my mother, and I had a teacher, Mrs. Conaway, who really understood how into sports I was, and so they used baseball cards as the carrot. And I would and to learn to read the cards. And so I was already into baseball cards, but now I was really into them. And between that and then stealing the sports page before my dad got up, so it was kind of like what is it, like Alvin or kind of yelling. That's how my dad was with the sports page. So I always have sports cards. hanging around, and I thought that we could open. Some
Okay.
cards.
Oh,
And
from 1987.
Yeah, we got,
God.
Yeah, so we got. I'm gonna open a few too.
And there's gum in here.
There's gum in here. I
Oh,
would
my
not
God.
recommend that you.
Oh, this is
that you dive into
unbelievable.
that. So yeah, you will go with the tops. These are kind of more your normal cards, and then the
my
upper deck
God.
came in. So
Oh, the
let's see what we
smell.
got.
I
remember
collect
the
the baseball
smell?
because the smell of the gum is still there.
See, the gum is stuck to this card.
No,
so
this gum is. Oh, I'll have this gum.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
look
can-
at these cards.
Yeah.
Oh,
let's see what we got.
God.
Let's see if we get any Brewers here.
Yeah. Not a good player.
Yeah.
Not a good player.
Yeah.
Hal McRae, good player.
Yep. Hal McRae. I got another Hal McRae.
Hal McRae.
Oh my God.
This was the 87 was Mark McGuire's
Lenny
rookie
Dykstra?
year. Lenny Dykstra
Okay.
had an interesting post baseball career.
Yeah, he certainly
Darryl
did.
Strawberry.
Okay.
Interesting post
I
baseball
don't know
career.
if this is his card, but it's a Roger Clemens record breaker.
Okay.
So, all right.
Well, he's Roger Clemens struck out 20 Seattle Mariners in 1986 at a game at Fenway Park that I attended.
Oh, okay.
And it was unbelievable. I was in law school, and I went to the game, and it was like a little rainy, and there was maybe 20,000 people in the stands. And Roger Clemens struck out 20, and I didn't even realize it. I knew he was striking a lot of guys, but it didn't really realize it until the ninth inning.
That's a big
And
deal.
And I saw this is history.
It is
so
history.
it was unbelievable to watch that game.
Last night I was watching a Cecil Fielder.
Mark McGuire.
Oh, hey, look,
Okay.
young Mark McGuire.
Mike McGuire. This is a rookie card.
This is rookie card.
That might be worth something.
All
so
right.
you're not
hang
going
up?
to
Don't
take it
bend
back.
the corners.
No.
No, those are your
Darryl
cards.
Strawberry, Bill Buckner. Oh, speaking of the '86 Red Sox,
Ooh.
the tragic error that cost the Red Sox the World Series.
And I think for him, such a good player.
Yeah,
but he's known for that, but he was such a good player.
He had like 2,700 hits. He won the batting title. He was a great player, not a Hall of Fame, but a close Hall of Fame kind of guy.
Hall of Fame guy, yeah.
But think about how cruel baseball is. You're known for one mistake. When he played 17 years in mostly excellent performances, a winning guy, class guy, passed away.
That's right.
But for him, to make that play, it's sad. It's baseball's cruel. It can. I still remember games that the Brewers have lost from 15, 20 years ago that still get me upset. Yep. It's weird. The losses and the errors stay with you forever. The wins are fleeting.
I think the last time I cried was when the Packers lost the Super Bowl against the Broncos, But yeah, so I get it. You got to open up some of the upper decks.
Okay.
You got to see. We want to see if we
Wait,
can
open the other 87?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
other
okay.
87. But Griffey Jr. could be waiting.
Okay,
in that,
all right, then.
upper deck.
Oh, look at this. This is unbelievable. Manager Hell in there. Bill Doran. I mean, just look at the uniforms. They're so old school.
I love it. And the wood border.
Yeah. Greg Gagne, Doug Corbett. Some not the greatest, but Ben Ogilvy, nice brewer, had a nice brewer's career. Chuck Tanner, interesting manager. Rick Russell. Tommy Lasorda. I met Tommy Lasorda.
You did?
Interesting guy.
Yeah?
I met him in 2018.
What you expected or no?
Yeah, it's interesting. My wife and I we were playing the Dodgers in 2018 in the LCS, and we're at Dodger Stadium for a little pregame party.
Okay.
And somebody comes up to my wife and says, Tommy Lasorda would like to meet you. And I'm like, what about me? I mean,
yeah.
No.
Like, I'm the one in baseball.
So my wife knows who Tommy Lasorda is. So I follow my wife. Tommy doesn't want to meet. He wants to meet my wife. He starts talking to my wife. And Tommy Lasorda goes to my wife, do you know who I am? And she goes, yes, you're the oldest living Hall of Famer. And Tommy was like.
And was she right?
She was right.
Is she a history buff too?
No, I don't know.
How does she know that?
I don't know. Because she is not a geek about sorts and spat.
You would think it would take
It was
that.
sort of, there's a higher power. But Tommy was, was close to death. And,
okay.
And he's the look on his face was priceless. And he said, I need pictures. So we have several pictures of my wife with Tommy.
Okay.
And then finally he let me get into one of the pictures.
Just saying, could you get in the picture?
Barely.
Yeah.
But when my wife said that, I said, where did that come from? That was such a treat for Tommy Lasorda to hear that.
Yeah.
It's one of the most memorable things, and I don't
That's
know
really
where
cool.
Kate.
Clearly made
I
a
don't know
big
where Kate
impression
caught
on
that information, but
I was going to say it was like she had to have cut. Maybe you talking with like a friend.
maybe. But the fact that I guess she's listening to me more than I thought.
Could be.
Yeah.
They're always listening.
Oh, these are great cards. Okay. And let's go to some of the modern ones.
Yeah, let's go to the modern.
Okay.
I did get a Nolan Ryan.
All right, that's valuable.
Right. Yep. In the old Stros.
Wow. Sid Fernandez. It shows you don't have to be a perfect shaped player to be a good baseball player because Sid
There's
had
a
a little
difference
bit of
between
gut.
like skill and athleticism.
Yes.
Charlie Hoff. Now he must have pitched.
He pitched till he was like 45.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Oh yeah, Larry McWilliams, Frank Viola. Okay, there's some good players.
Yeah.
I mean, a little sticker.
Oh, look at that! You got a sticker.
And some guy, Tony Gwynn. Speaking of Tony Gwynn, we talked about Tony Gwynn earlier.
Right, R.I.P.
Yeah,
I mean,
poor guy. What a
I always thought he'd
classic
break
great.
400. He got what?
He came close.
Came close.
Yeah. Well, the strike shortened season hurt him.
could have done it.
Yeah, he could have done it. Dave Winfield. He's growing up, and my kids were friends with his son.
Okay.
Dave Winfield, when we were in L.A., he lived in L.A., one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And he was an incredible athlete.
Incredible athlete. So you got to know he played more than just baseball.
He was a 3-sport star
Drafted.
at Minnesota. He's drafted as basketball player, baseball player, and football. Right?
I mean, has anybody ever done that?
I don't know.
I
He probably would have been successful at every sport
because he's a big guy.
Yeah, he was so talented.
Yeah, but I mean, to be drafted in all three.
Nice guy.
That's awesome.
Tremendous player. So it's one of the beauties of being in the sport is you get to meet legends, and a lot of times the legends don't maybe sometimes let you down. Yeah, but I've met a lot of people in this game who are legends,
every bit, and
who are as genuine and personable and friendly and embracing as you could imagine.
Well, I got to tell you, that describes you really well because when we got
I'm not a legend though.
When we got on the Zoom call, hopefully you're going to be after this podcast, but when we got on that Zoom call, I didn't know what to expect, and we had just an awesome. So that authenticity you were talking about, you were authentic as the day is long. We had a fun conversation. We're talking sports in here. We're going to talk some more sports, I'm sure, when we're off. This has been a great conversation. Appreciate you taking the time. We're going to be watching the Brewers. And like I said, I think this could be the year. But thank you so much for the time and delivering also the wisdom over your entire career. I think there was a lot of really good gems for folks to take away that will help them build a brand that people believe in and want to belong to. So thank you, Rick. We appreciate it.
It's great. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm just excited to be partners with you guys, and I'm excited for the rest of this experience today because I think I'm going to go in the range.
Oh, that's right. So he's going to get some one-on-one range time down at Edge shooting. I think we're going to do handguns. We may do some AR-15s. I'm going to try to kid around, see if we can shoot a 50 BMG off of there. But you're going to have some fun, but you're also going to learn and you're going to get better at, with a handgun.
Great.
So it's going to be fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Listen, guys, movements are built on connection. If this resonated, share it and join the conversation. Hit that subscribe button or check the show notes where you can follow me on all my socials. Or check out more about the movement at vortexcare.com. Let's build something rare together.